Well, I started out in grammar school. There was a music test for all the students. I did very well. They said that my prize would be to play in the band and they would give me an instrument, but they gave me a tuba instead of a trumpet. And I didn't like playing the tuba, but I learned how to play the tuba fairly well. And then by the time I got to go to high school, uh, my father bought me a trumpet. I paid for it. It was $10. And I started taking some lessons. But in the high school, they wanted me to play the tuba because there were many trumpet players, and I was the only tuba player. But my mother went to school and said that Tom, wanted to play trumpet in the band. And they said no, so I left the band. And I went off on my own, taking trumpet lessons and playing in little groups. I ended up taking trumpet lessons from Reynold Schilke. And I was playing in little combos, jazz groups, and regular brass groups. That's all through high school. So I didn't have any real band experience in high school. I was on my own, and it was much better. The band was not good in my high school. After high school, I continued with Mr. Schilke and went to a Chicago junior college. And my first job was with the Grant Park Symphony Orchestra, which is a regular professional orchestra in the summertime in the parks in Chicago. And Mr. Schilke helped me to get that job. I played an audition. I don't remember what the audition consisted of, but then I played third trumpet in the Grant Park Symphony Orchestra. Well, Reynold Schilke, one of my problems with studying with him was that I had no upper register. I could play maybe to a G above middle C. And he had an exercise in the Arbin book where one played, I forgot the page, but played ba, 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 and gradually going higher. So I did that I started out, I was not doing above G, but after a year I could play a high F. So that was pretty good advancement. And we used to play, Mr. Schilke and I would play ba, he would play ba. When we got up to high F, he didn't play it anymore. I had surpassed him. I don't know that my solution was good. It was losing flexibility somewhat. I was playing so loud and so high. I remember I used to practice 3 or 4 hours a day, and my father would come in and say, Tommy, don't you think you've practiced enough for today? They were tired of hearing the high notes, but it was ba, 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 gradually higher. Every week, maybe half a tone higher. And playing loud, which I wouldn't recommend now, but that's what I did. I got a good upper register from that. Played the piccolo trumpet quite a bit. Met Ed Tarr. I talked about him on my interview on the Ed Tarr. Mr. Schilke's help was in finding places for me to play. And I played at the Grant Park Symphony Orchestra. Played there. Then I was played for Arthur Fiedler. Do you know who he was? Boston Pops Orchestra. And I remember the Gershwin Piano Concerto has a big trumpet solo. I was the first trumpet by that time. And so after the Grand Park Symphony was over, I got a call from the manager of the Boston Pops Tour Orchestra to go on tour with them. So that was big time for me. I was going to college to stay out of the army. The Korean War was going on, and going to college, you were deferred from being taken into the army, and I didn't want to go and kill Koreans. So I didn't think they would notice that I was gone playing with the Boston Pops, but they did. So anyway, in the meantime, I got a call from the television station, radio television, that they wanted me to play second trumpet on a program. Eldon Benge, you've heard the name Benge? He was the first trumpet. He had been first trumpet in the Chicago Symphony, played very well. So I went to the rehearsal. It was a stack of music about this high, but Benge didn't play. He didn't like the conductor. He read his newspaper. So I played second trumpet parts alone. I think that was an audition, actually. And then we played the show that night on the radio. It went very well. Benge played well. And then they started calling me to play second trumpet. And then Benge retired. He went to California, he retired, and I became the first trumpet. So it was a very good job, paid well, played different kinds of music, classical, pop. But then I was called into the Army because of having gone away from school. And I went through Army service. I was taken as a regular soldier, not as a musician. And I had to do basic training, which is marching and shooting guns, that sort of thing. I was not good at that. I wanted to get into a band, and I had not played the trumpet for 3 or 4 weeks. And I auditioned for the band, and I didn't do well, and they didn't take me. So I was back to basic training. Then after that, they sent me to a band school, which I didn't need because I was already a professional. But I went to the band school and practiced the trumpet there mostly, nothing much to do. And then I did so well, they asked me to be in the band there. I said, no, I did the audition. You didn't want me. I wanted to go somewhere else. So they sent me to another Army band in Missouri. Neosho, Missouri is this very small town. Very funny little band, not very good. And I remember my first rehearsal, the band leader wanted, I was going to be the new first trumpet player. And I didn't really know that they were having a rehearsal was just for me to play. But so I was eating breakfast. I didn't go to the rehearsal, and I was embarrassed, but they did it again the next day. And the piece that I had to play was, if I knew you were coming, I would have baked a cake. Did you ever hear that song? Da 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 da. Ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba, jazzy. So I did that. Then I played in that band, and then they shipped us up to another summer band in Wisconsin. And that was nearer to Chicago. And I called up the contractor at WGN, the television station, and told him that I was free on the weekends. So I used to drive down there and play on the weekends at the TV station. Made more in one night at the TV station, made more money than I did in a whole month in the Army, of course. And I was not supposed to have been doing that. But the one band leader said he saw me on television. But anyway, I was there, and it was okay. Then I got notice that I was being sent to an Army Symphony, or the Army Symphony Orchestra in Feiningen. Do you know where Feiningen is? Near Stuttgart. I went there, and it was a very good symphony orchestra. This was in 1954 or 55. And this was a better orchestra than most of the German orchestras at that time, outside of Berlin or the big orchestras, because of the war. All the different musicians had been in the war, and some didn't come back, and so forth. But we played, I remember, in Italy for 2 months. I started to learn Italian there. I didn't know any German when I came. The only word I knew of German was Gesundheit. But anyway, we played in Italy. I was attracted to learning Italian. So I learned Italian better than German, really. And we played in all the major Italian cities. And then I came back to America and went back to playing on the radio and television. So that's 1955. I was in Chicago playing on the radio, television. It was rather boring. It paid well, but I was taking some coaching lessons from Arnold Jacobs. He was the tuba player in the Chicago Symphony. And I was at a lesson, and he said, I have a young girl here, trombone player, that you should meet. She was just in Germany also on a tour. That was Donna, yeah. So I met her, shook hands, and I thought that was it. But Arnold Jacobs, in the next lesson, he said, have you called Donna yet for a date? And I said, no. He said, well, you better call her for a date. So I called her, and we went to hear the Chicago Symphony, and I started seeing her regularly. And to make it condense the time, in 1959, we got married. I was still playing at the radio station, but I had an offer to play at West Side Story for 3 months with the D trumpet part. This second trumpet was a high trumpet. So I got permission from the radio station to send a substitute for 3 months, and did that. And Donna and I were together. So West Side Story was very exciting to play a long engagement. We played every night. I have the D trumpet. I bought a Quinon D trumpet in Paris, and I played it on that. It was just the right type of trumpet for it. It was this rather small French trumpet. It played very well. So anyway, that was West Side Story. Went back to playing on the radio, TV, and then they started a children's circus program. It was called Bozo Circus, and that was very popular in Chicago. That was maybe for people of that age, was the most famous thing that I played on. Every day, 12 to 1, a circus program for children. And I got tired of that and I quit. I thought I would make enough money teaching and playing, but I didn't. And the band leader asked me back, even though I had quit. So I thought that was very nice of him. So I continued playing there. Then in 1964, Reynold Chilke and William Scarlett were the two trumpet players in the lyric opera. And they needed a third trumpet. And they recommended me. And these were days where you could get a job without an audition. Some trumpet section recommends you. I played at lyric opera, played mostly second. I played first one year. But I played there for 29 years. So that was a long time. Well, the mute started more or less accidentally. I was playing at the opera, and we were playing, I think it was Le Rossignol by Stravinsky. And I had a piccolo trumpet part. I was playing on the piccolo trumpet anyway. And I didn't have a mute for the piccolo trumpet. And Adolf Herseth had a mute that worked very well. And I used it on this Stravinsky opera. And then I was experimenting with it. And I asked him if I could have it duplicated. He said yes. So I had them duplicated, but they were larger than the piccolo mute. And I tried them out with corks with the regular trumpet. And I thought, that is fantastic. That's better than sex. And so I had the mutes, and I had a dozen made for the Chicago Symphony and the Philadelphia Symphony, and they liked them, and I think they still use them. And then I started making I made a trombone mute just by drawing what I thought a trombone mute should look like, and had different players try them out, and slight differences, and gradually did wah-wah mute, cup mute, different mutes. So eventually we have a whole complete line of mutes, but it was all more or less accidental. I'm not a scientist. What I had was a lot of very good trumpet players to try things out and say, this is good, this is good, from the Chicago Symphony and from the opera, and a lot of different people. So we finally produced the mute, and then I was able to, I spoke different languages, and I was able to, do you remember the Brass Bulletin? Have you seen that? Yeah. I had an advertisement in that at the beginning. We never advertised, but I had one there, and I said I would answer letters in Spanish, Italian, French, German, and I thought there would be many people that would answer, but I only had one answer from it. It was Gabriele Cassoni in Italy. So he bought a mute. So that was like 30 years ago, I think. And he's became a close friend. And he's visited us here. We visited in Italy many times. And he has the trumpet group that we meet with every week on Zoom. So that's kind of it's not a big story about the mutes, but I think that having different people try them out was a very good players. Bass trombone mute was very hard to, and the bass trombone player in the Chicago Symphony, Edward Kleinhammer was his name. And he tried out, and he used a cone from the toilet paper so that he could make the mute gradually longer. And then one night he called up and he said, I have it. And I said, well, tape it and send it to me. So it worked very well. It had originally it had one bad note, and this eliminated the bad note. Donna and I traveled to Europe every year, mostly to Italy, but some to Germany. And then I had met Arno Lange, and we were eating dinner in Berlin somewhere, and I said, wouldn't it be interesting to change places for a year? So it seemed impossible. But he got permission from the Deutsche Oper to do that, and I got permission from the Lyric Opera in Chicago, and we changed places. I played in the Deutsche Oper for a year, met all the different friends there, Konradin Groth, Michel Klingel. You mentioned the trombone player yesterday. What was his name?
Axel Maugner.
Axel Maugner. Yeah, he was a good friend. Good friend. I remember that we went back there many years later just to visit, and Axel. They had a luncheon for us, and Axel was there, and he had his trombone that I had given him. Still, he was retired by that time. And Axel was a very good first trombone player, I thought. I enjoyed playing Palestrina of all things. But I like the Puccini, and all of Puccini is good. Verdi, some of Aida. I remember I played Aida. We were on a platform very high, and I was afraid of heights too. And we could not wear my glasses. They I could not have a watch or glasses, anything modern. And Konradin Groth was playing, so he helped me a lot to get up the stairs. That wasn't so bad, but we played another opera, Verdi. Oh no, it's Wagner, I think. And von Karajan had written in extra trumpet parts. And the trumpets come to this special spot, and I think it was 6 trumpets, and we march out together and turn around and play this. I don't remember what it was. The first time I played it, maybe it was only 4 trumpets, I don't know, but they were all from the orchestra except myself. So it was easy. I just played along with them. But then the next time I went, and it was the same thing. None of the other outside trumpet players had ever played this before. And I had to explain in German what, when we went out, the backstage conductor was not interested in helping us really. And so we got to the time and we marched out there and turned around and played very soft, very weak. And the trumpet players in the orchestra later said, "Why did you play so soft?" we were afraid. Warum hast du so leise gespielt? And we didn't know what to do actually. And the other trumpets had no idea where we were. And then we turned around and walked off the stage. I remember another opera. I don't remember which opera it was, but I think it was Wagner, where stage trumpets had things in different keys. They would play a little bit in F, then a little bit in E flat. And the first trumpet of the Berlin Philharmoniker played. He didn't come to any of the rehearsals, and he didn't catch the different transpositions. So he would always start off in the wrong transposition for a note or two. And a man in the audience hollered, "Uben, Uben." And when they did it 4 or 5 times, the whole audience was saying, "Uben, Uben." After the performance, we were drinking a beer in the cantina, and his name was Martin. Yeah, he said, "This is the last time I'm going to play at the Deutsche Oper." And he never played again. He was so embarrassed. He played the trumpet well, but that didn't matter. He played the wrong note. I remember I think the first time I played at the opera was Electra, and I played the 5th trumpet or so, and George Krause, do you remember his name?
Yes, I do.
We had to come in the back of the orchestra at the very end of Electra and play a fanfare. And I followed George. George was very nice to me. I followed George, And as we were going past the percussion, an old percussionist dropped a cymbal, and everybody looked at me. They thought it was, there was 100 people in the orchestra looking at me, and the whole audience. It's seeing this. I was standing there. I had nothing to do with it, but the trumpets in the orchestra thought that was really funny. They liked it. And although George said he didn't have anything to do it, he didn't do it. But it was this old percussionist, and he dropped the cymbal crash in a very quiet spot in Electra. We were there in 1973, 74
Mhm.
in Berlin, and it was in the middle of the Cold War. So it was a very interesting time. We could go to, as we're American citizens, you could go to East Berlin. Germans could not go to East Berlin. So we traveled walking mostly in East Berlin. And we spoke German like I speak German. And they would think we were Dutch or Swedish or something. And then they would hear us speaking English together. They didn't like that. The enemy. We had good friends in Paris, and we stayed with them. Luciana, trumpet player with the L'Orchestre National de France, his name was Lucien Macoca. And I wanted to buy a Selmer piccolo trumpet like Maurice Andre had, but the factory was closed because it was summer vacation. And so Lucien said, why don't we go and visit Maurice and see what he says? So Lucien and another trumpet player from the orchestra, I forgot his name, we went out to Maurice's house, and I saw this man in overalls working in the garden. I thought, oh, that's nice, they have a gardener. But that was Maurice Andre. So he knew Lucien very well. They had played in the orchestra together. And we sat down and had wine and talked. I spoke French. I spoke French then. I've forgotten it mostly. But I said, je voudrais acheter un petit trompette comme sa mère. Et elle a dit, vous pouvez acheter moi. You can buy my Selmer piccolo trumpet. Pardon the French. And so he sold me this. He said it was the same trumpet that he had played all of his original discs on. And it was a beautiful little 4-valve petite trumpet. And I still have it, of course. And I used it here many times in orchestras. And we used to do what are called commercials, publicité, and use it on that. American Airlines, different companies would do a short commercial and the orchestra background. So that was the story with Maurice Andre. At that point, I had played at the opera for 29 years, played all of the repertoire, and then I stopped playing at the age of 67, 68. And I am here now at a retirement home in near Chicago. And I'm doing Zoom calls every day with friends in Switzerland. I have Austria, Germany, and Italy predominantly. So that's taking up most of my time. Es war eine schöne Erfahrung. Bye bye. Dankeschön.